Hey guys, Charwright5 here, and today we are going to be drawing Edward Scissorhands. I know this is technically not considered a horror movie, or technically even really a Halloween movie. If anything, it's probably considered a little bit more of a Christmas movie, because I think it takes place around that time, more so than any other holiday. But I think that in going with the whole, like, gothic-looking style of Tim Burton, like, he's probably one of my sister's favorite characters to probably draw, and, again, like, despite the fact that he doesn't really have much to do with the holiday, he is still, in essence, a pretty creepy character. My sister loves his design and wanted to draw him, so I figured, you know what, yeah, let's go for it. This movie is a movie that, it was another one that I'd heard a lot about growing up, without having any particular interest in it, but I did watch it. I'd watched bits and pieces of it as a child, so I didn't really retain much information about the movie, and, you know, I watched it again when I was older, and I do like the movie. I like the lore behind the character, who the character is. It really started to shine, and I think it was like one of the first instances of Tim Burton and Johnny Depp just working together all the time in like almost all their projects, that what they would do. It was the start of that. And I gotta say, for some reason, I just had a blast drawing this character. Like, I don't know, I got into it. I was doing the tracing for it, the draft, and I think this was, well, no, because Sally and Jack was the first time I looked at a character and didn't really draw from reference, but this was like another time, especially considering that I wasn't going for, like, my reference was realistic. Like, I was looking at the actual, you know, an actual photo of Johnny Depp in makeup, and I was trying to cartoonify it. I was trying to make a caricature out of it. Not necessarily a caricature, because, you know, I'm not really making fun of his features or anything, but I was cartoonifying him. And I decided to do it in a way that maybe, you know, a Tim Burton movie would look, like Nightmare Before Christmas or Corpse Bride. You know, I try to make it look like that, instead of, like I said, trying to go the realistic route. Which I'd been doing for a week with the horror movie monsters, and I'm probably going to have to end up doing it again in future ones. I don't know. Maybe I'll stick to just the cartoony ones because I have more fun with that. But like I said during the monster movie one, realism is a great help, I think, when it comes to drawing. It does. Drawing the human form and in human shapes helps a lot. Even though I was just doing portraits, I wasn't really doing full body stuff. But it still really helps. It helps with shadows. It helps with a lot of that stuff. Understanding how faces are structured, how shadows apply depending on the shape of the face. Everything like that. And I think that I tried to apply what I'd learned simply, you know, using ink on this piece. Because, again, like, I think this so far might be one of the more complex drawings, if only because of the heavy uses of black, the different kinds of materials. Like, we have metal for his rings, leather for his outfit. So it's like, it's not just black, but it's also like it has shiny parts and reflective parts because of the materials. His hair is like just pure jet black. His very skeletal and, you know, I don't know, the depth that goes into his eyes, like in his face, you know, the very bony face he has, like, that helps with the shadows. And it's just a lot of different materials to work with, and therefore a lot of shadows to apply, a lot of different shadows as well. But as a result, like, it became very, very fun to draw him, and you know, just go crazy with my lines, with the way I drew his hair. And I think the body for me was like the most difficult part, because it's like, oh, there's so much detail to it, but at the same time, like, I'm working in all black, so I have to make sure that I get, like, the reflective parts right. Metal for his scissors. Like, I think his scissor hands were probably the most half-assed thing I did, I think, because it's like, if I try to get the more realistic and appropriate type of shading for it, I'm gonna end up doing something wrong. So I try to, like, avoid making them as perfectly as possible and just winging it. just so that I could get a better. It would look better and it would have a better feel. But yeah, right now, really, all you're gonna see me do is work on the body, pretty much, because it's like all the shading was not the easiest thing to do because the hatching went in different directions, and at this point, I'm realizing that I made the head way too small for the body. Although I think the proportion, composition-wise, like if you look at the piece as a whole, I think it looks fine. But definitely when I was drawing this, I was like, oh my god, his head is incredibly tiny compared to the rest of his body. Like, because I was going for I went for a cartoony head and a very human-like body. I think that was the problem. So the proportions just don't add up. But if you look at the piece as a whole in the end, I think, it's still a pretty good piece despite that. So yeah, here I'm just applying all the blacks I can to the rest of the body, the shading of the rings and all that. I guess I didn't really talk too much about the... see, I see so much black. I guess I didn't really talk too much about what I think about the movie itself, and the performances and all that. I do think that it's a very, very interesting movie. I think it's a very nice movie, very interesting character, mostly. Johnny Depp does an amazing performance as Edward Scissorhands. And he's just a perfect outcast. Like, I think it's a really nice, even though it's a story we've seen a lot, it is just a great story of an outcast and how, like, people are accepting of him. Yeah, I think that's the funniest part because it's so... I feel like even that's becoming standard fare because, like, people not accepting an outcast has become so cliched that even the concept of accepting an outcast has become cliched, I think, as well. But I think Edward Scissorhands was probably one of the first... I mean, I may be wrong, and I'm probably wrong, but I like to think of it as probably one of the first instances of a town just accepting an outcast as like, oh yeah, you're one of us. We don't really judge you for anything. Like, you look weird, but we don't think you're a freak. Sure, there were some characters that did see Edward as a freak, and they were pretty much the bad guys of the film. But, like, everyone in the town was just like, they gave him weird looks, sure, but they were pretty much accepting of who he was, especially, like, when he learns, like, hey, I can cut hair, and, like, I can use my scissors for something good, because he lived in fear all the time that, like, oh, my scissor hands are going to... They're weapons of destruction, and that's all they'll ever be. So, like, when he finds... that he can actually do good with them and he can make beautiful things out of them in the form of sculpting, I think that that's just a beautiful thing. I think that that's really nice, and it goes to show it's like, oh, well, there's more to yourself than even you think and that even you know. And just the way that they take him in and everything and that they're so accepting of him. Because, again, at that point there was such a cliche of, like, oh, the mothers are always so accepting and the fathers are always like, so, no, we can't keep him because, like, oh, it's so stupid and we have a daughter in the house. How could we keep him? But, like, I did watch bits of this movie actually like a few months ago, so kind of recently, because it was just on TV. And so it was like the last few moments of the movie. Or rather, the second half of it. And the father is just, like, so accepting of it. He's just like, oh, yeah, you know what, I don't... Yeah, like, Edward's a good guy. He's a good chap. I like him. And, he... In any other movie, like, the minute that the character goes missing or runs off or runs away, like, the father would be, good, we don't need him, he's better off this way. When they find out that he ran away, he's, like, the first one to be like, I'm gonna go find him. I'm sure that he's out there somewhere. And I don't... There's something so sweet about that. And even when everyone starts thinking that he's a monster and that he attacks people, it's all just one big misunderstanding. When the Winona Ryder character tells them that, like, oh, they killed each other, and shows the town one of his gloves or one of his hands, everyone's just very accepting of it. Like, they secretly didn't want to, like... They wanted to believe he was dead, but only because they didn't want to believe he was dead. Like, it was one of those instances where it's like, it's better left this way. Maybe you're not telling the truth, but this is probably what's best for us. Like, I always got that impression during that scene. I never got the impression of, like, okay, good, he's dead. I always got more so the impression of, well, we're kind of bummed out that things ended this way, but even if they didn't and he's still alive in there, it's probably better that he stays in there, because we all do care about him and we all do like him, but maybe it is best for him to stay in here. And it's kind of sad. I think the romance between the characters is a little forced. They just like exchange a few looks. You know, it really is one of those cases of, oh, love at first sight. You know, but that's the thing. It's pretty much love only at sight, because they hardly ever interact. There's like no romance between the two that I can glean. Sure, you can tell that there's an attraction, but I don't know. They don't. I don't think it works very well. But the idea of them not ending up together, I think, was sort of nice in a way, and the fact that like that before Edward was there, it didn't really snow, and now that they know he exists and that he was there, it snows all the time, because that's what he's dedicated his life to. You know, now that he's alone, he gets ice from where I have no godly idea. I don't know where he gets his ice from, but like he sculpts them with his hands, and so like the residue. I don't know how that works, but I think it is a charming sort of touch. The residue from the ice chips creates snow on the town, and I think that that's a really nice thing. I like that he ends up on his own. I like that he's not forced into like, oh, we had the happily ever after just because he's the main character and I'm the love interest. I like that they didn't go that route. That I think is a great touch. And it's despite everything, like you'd think that because of his design, it's like it'd be a very creepy movie. And for the longest time when I was a kid, I thought that was the case. And no, it's actually pretty much a family movie, and a very nice one at that too. Like I think maybe it does. I think it sort of teaches a lesson in terms of like don't judge those who just like look different than you, because you don't know what their abilities are. You don't know what they can do for you, and you might need them. They can be great contributors to society, you know. And even then, I think it's also a great message for people like individually, in the form of, like I said earlier, you may think that you're a destructive force, but you don't know what you're capable of either. Like maybe the thing that you think is destructive can also be used for something beautiful. And I think that in and of itself as a message is great. Wow. This definitely did take a while, I think mostly because of all the black. So this probably was one of my, ironically, despite the fact that it's a cartoon, one of my longer pieces. Especially, I think, because it's not exactly a full body portrait, but it is close to full body. That and just the canvas. See, Edward Scissorhands or Michael Jackson. I forgot I wrote that. Basically, the canvas size, again, much like with the Jack and Sally one, I think the proportions might be a little wrong. Like, I think the canvas is too big for him, but I kind of like the offset. Like, he's a little bit to the side. Anyway, this is the final piece. I hope you all enjoyed that a lot. I definitely enjoyed making this piece. I am very, very proud of it. I hope you guys liked it too. And tell me, do you like this film? What do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you think it's overrated? Do you think it doesn't get enough praise? I'd love to read it. And tomorrow we will be covering a movie that a lot of people think Tim Burton was associated with, but actually he had nothing to do with it. In fact, it was directed by the same guy, I think, that directed Nightmare Before Christmas. But until next time, guys, stay safe and stay awesome. This is Char5, signing off.